Alrighty, well, it looks like we're getting started now. I pushed a button. Hey,
All
John, how
right.
are you?
Hey, Simon. Good to be back.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm happy you're back. I know you had a week off last week, and looks like you had a lot of fun, and it's good to have you back on the live stream.
All right. Well, welcome me back. And there we go. Yep. I wanted to make sure mic check's good.
Sorry, John, I caught you by surprise.
I know. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to our weekly Lunch and Learn here at HSE, Tuesdays at noon, right here on YouTube. So thank you so much for being here. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, make a comment if you like, ask us some questions. We'll get to those throughout our episode today. Today, we're going to be talking about crop spraying drone field essentials. So as you can see, Simon, our lead tech, is right there. He's
Hi,
over
guys.
at HQ in Castleberry, Florida. And we are going to talk all about what we bring to the field, what is essential for, crop spraying drone field essentials. I think I've said the word essentials 3 times now. So Simon, please take it away and let's talk
Awesome.
about what you bring out there.
Awesome, you got it. Let me switch over to this screen over here. Again, guys, thank you again for joining us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button up there. Well, it's actually down here, but you can see it up here too. Thank you guys again for joining us, like you said, every Tuesday at noon. The purpose of today's Lunch and Learn is to go over what we've, from our experience, have learned what we need to bring to the field for crop spraying drones. And we'll discuss other systems as well, other applications besides crop spraying too. But crop spraying drones are kind of unique with what is required to bring to the field. And, with the experience that we at HSC have had, we've learned a lot. There's definitely things that we've forgotten to bring that prove to be extremely necessary. So let's go ahead and get started. So I think the most important thing to have at your field is to know what your power source is. And what do I mean by that? Well, in order to fly these drones, especially in an application like crop spraying where you need to fly basically nonstop, you need to have a good power source to charge your batteries. And that's, I think, the most important thing to have at the field. So, how do we get power to our field? Well, in a lot of cases, we're in remote areas. We're not just going to have a power socket handy, so we have to rely on a generator or some kind of generator source. So we've had some experience with generators, good experiences, bad experiences. We have a lot of customers that come to us with their experience. And, we've learned a lot as to what types of generators we need. And we've seen systems that work and systems that don't. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So like I mentioned, these drones are huge, right? And they need a lot of power to charge these batteries. So for example, here I have one of our chargers. This is the standard charger that is included with our Helio models. This is just one charger. It has 2 banks. You guys can see one bank here and another bank over
Simon,
here. Yeah.
do you have another scene to make
Yeah, let's
yourself
make that a little bit
bigger
bigger. I'm sorry.
for
It's
them?
tiny. You're right. Let's go. How's that?
That's good.
There we
Okay.
go. So you guys can see this charger here. There's a battery port here. There's another one over here on the other side. There's 2 sets of controls. Sorry, guys, it's really heavy. There's 2 sets of controls on the charger on the top. So what this charger does is it allows us to charge 2 batteries at a time. Most of our systems, we include multiple chargers. So for example, in our Ag 110 and our Ag 116, because they only use 1 battery to operate, the standard package that we include with the aircraft includes 2 chargers. Now on our Ag 122, it uses double the amount of batteries. The Ag 122 uses 2 batteries. I'm sure you guys have seen some of our demos and videos on that system before. In that system, we actually double the amount of chargers. So the standard package includes 4 chargers. Well, as you can see, this thing it's really heavy. I mean, it probably weighs 20 pounds, and it requires a pretty significant power input. So let's talk about that real quick. This charger is rated at, with a 120 volt input, a standard power socket, is rated at about 750 watts per bank maximum, which means about 1,500 watts total for this charger. Now, some of you savvy guys out there that know a little bit about power outlets know that that's about the maximum power output we can get from a standard 15 amp wall socket and breaker. So a couple things about this. Even if you're connecting these chargers to a standard wall socket, you really have to be careful about how you connect it. You can't just go and connect 2 or 3 or 4 chargers to a single socket. You will pop the breaker. I know that from experience. So something really important is if say you're charging at home or in your office or wherever it may be, you do need to make sure that when you connect these chargers to your wall that you're connecting them to separate breakers. Because one of these chargers is basically like a high power microwave. You can't connect two to a single source.
That's a really good point, Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something a lot of people, frankly, end up learning through experience. We want to try to avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations since I've been with HSE starting June last year, but I've talked about charging, and the cycling of batteries and having multiple chargers running, but I don't think I've ever actually mentioned gotten that deep into the weed. So,
right into the numbers, right?
Yeah, and that's what the Lunch and Learns are for. So Thank you. And guys, by the way, don't forget, if you have any questions for us, please put them in the comment over there. I'll keep an eye on that as Simon's going, through the different essentials that we take out to the field. And if you haven't already turned on the notifications, please do so. Catch us every time we go live. So Simon, great point. I just wanted to
thank you.
Out. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So that kind of brings me on to the next point, since these chargers do use so much power, if you're running a generator to operate these chargers, you need to size the generator appropriately. So my experience with generators have shown me that the ratings for generators in a lot of cases tend to be a little optimistic. Some manufacturers tend to be better than others, but you really need to give yourself some margin when you size a generator for these chargers. For example, we have a generator that we use for all our training classes. And for our training classes, we're not really doing non-stop flights, so we don't need a huge generator to run it. So we have a generator that's, I'm looking at it right now on the ground here. It's too heavy for me to pick up, but it has a giant label on the side that says 2,300 watts. And then in fine print right next to it, it says 1,800 running watts. So what does that mean? Well, I see generators rated like this all the time. The higher number is actually the starting or peak watts, meaning let's say you have a power saw or something that has a very high initial load, the generator can run that, but it can only run, for example, the 1,800 watts continuously. So that's really, really important. When you buy a generator, you have to look at the continuous running watts. The starting watts, for our chargers, unfortunately don't do anything for us because our chargers are a continuous power source. They pull the same amount of power throughout their charging process, which can last hours, and if we're flying nonstop, all day, right, as we cycle our batteries. So that's an extremely important thing to consider. My experience with these chargers is an 1,800 watt generator will run one charger comfortably, but you cannot run any more than one. Like I said, this charger pulls about 1,500 watts, and an 1,800 watt generator runs it just fine. I always recommend giving yourself some margin with generators, especially if you're operating in hot environments, because running a generator for 12 hours at its maximum rating really puts a lot of load on the generator. And if you're operating in really hot environments, if it's already 90 degrees plus ambient, it's possible that you could overheat your generator. So I like to give myself like a 20%, at least minimum 15% margin on the generator size.
And that is, 15 to 20% margin off of the running watts, right?
Right. That's right.
And then I had a couple questions for you, Simon. Nothing in the queue yet, but the one is kind of an efficiency question.
Sure.
So if I were swarming and running multiple generators, does it make sense to have a bigger generator, or does it make sense to have multiple smaller generators? Like, how would you tackle that from a fuel efficiency standpoint? And then in terms of the running, I'm going to call it the running watt slash max watt differential.
Right.
What do you typically see, and what are you looking for? Is there something that helps me also understand whether or not there's a good quality within that generator?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things about the generators is there's really two main types of generators. You have an inverter style generator and a traditional generator. And the main difference between the two is an inverter style generator allows the output to be consistent while varying the engine RPM, which means it'll automatically run the engine at different rates based on the load that you give it. So that means they're a lot more fuel efficient and tend to be a lot quieter and a lot smaller too. You'll see this a lot with a lot of the portable style generators. When you get to much larger generators, it's harder to find inverter style. They are available, but they're also a lot more expensive. What I've seen that tends to work really well is actually operating multiple smaller generators. And there's a couple reasons behind that. Typically, the smaller generators are priced much more affordably than larger generators. And since each charger is its own independent unit with its own power cord, we don't need one huge generator. We can run multiple smaller ones. The price point of those smaller generators, in a lot of cases, two of them for the same wattage is going to be potentially less cost than one large generator. And there's a couple things I prefer about that. First of all, you always have a backup. And as we know with small engines, it's always a good idea to have a backup generator because that's your only if that's your only power source in the field, you really should have a backup source. Beyond that, it allows you to operate only the amount of generators that you actually need. So if you're only running one charger, if you have one very large generator, you're kind of wasting a lot of fuel and it's going to make a lot of noise for a power output that you don't necessarily need. So with multiple smaller generators, it allows you to start only the one that you need and run only what you need. So you're going to save a lot of fuel too, which in a lot of cases is important. We don't want to waste fuel, especially on electric aircraft, right?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of alluding to there with that question, and I appreciate you kind of solidifying that we recommend basically having the smaller generators that will run whichever battery you need because that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, a quality generator is extremely important for your operation. You'll want to have enough chargers to fly if you're doing crop spraying, typically nonstop. So we offer packages that allow you to do that. So we have a fly all day upgrade kit that adds additional chargers and batteries to allow you to do that. And if you're interested in that and the pricing for that, you can just go to our website. You can see it right above me here, hscuav.com. You can request a quote and we can set you up with the right charging and battery package for each aircraft. So let me go ahead and move this down here. Any more questions, John, about that? Did we have any more questions come in or anything that you want to add?
No, nothing in the chat. I was just kind of curious. You mentioned I never noticed the running watt versus the max watt. Just kind of curious.
Yeah.
What is a typical range that we see? I mean,
like I said, for example, the generator we're running is 1,800 watts, and it's a small little generator, and I love it because it allows me, when I do my training classes, for example, to easily transport it by myself. When you get to that's another advantage, actually. When you get to a much larger generator, it's not a one-man operation to lift it and move it. This smaller generator, I think it only weighs about 50 pounds. Easily liftable. It even has wheels I can transport it with. When you start to get to the much larger ones, we're talking hundreds of pounds. So sure, you can run a larger generator, but in that case, you probably need a vehicle set up specifically to transport that generator as well.
Yeah.
One more thing about the charging that I want to mention is if you're running an extension cord, please make sure that you use a quality extension cord. You don't want to run a small gauge extension cord. I really recommend a minimum of a or rather a maximum 12 gauge extension cord. If you can get a larger cable, even better, because if you have long extension cords, you're going to lose a lot of power in the resistance of the extension cord, and it's going to put your generator under even more load. So get a quality extension cord and try not to run too long of an extension cord if possible, because that is going to put even more load on the generator. But let's move on from the charging and generators, because there's a lot more stuff that we take to the field, right? I mean, it's not just batteries and charging. So I do want to bring out my toolbox here, rather my tool bag. And you guys can see it here. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys again. So you guys can see this tool bag, and this is actually a toolkit that's included with the Helio models. So let me quickly run through what is included and some stuff that I also like to add on to it. So of course we have our remote controller. Of course, before you go to your field, you got to make sure all your equipment is charged. So this needs to be charged up. This controller is charged just with a simple micro USB. It's just like a cell phone. Very, very easy. And I've noticed the battery lasts a really long time on this. I can run it all day, basically with no issues at all. And what's really cool is that it does allow you to run the controller with the power connected too. So if you need to, you can always connect a power source while you use it. In the tool bag here, we also have our telemetry data radio. This is what communicates from our computer ground station to our drone. And then we get into some of our tools. So we include a toolkit with the aircraft here. And this actually includes basically all the tools that you need to assemble and service the aircraft. So we have these nice aluminum hex drivers, which I really, really like actually. So nice aluminum drivers. There's a couple sets of pliers in here as well for any nuts and bolts that you may need to loosen or unscrew. So nice little toolkit. Comes in its nice little case. Something that I like to carry with me, and this is something that I add on to the toolkit, are a bag of extra nozzles. So it's always good to have additional nozzles. If for any reason you don't clean them properly and they get clogged up, the last thing you want is to have half your nozzles working. So having some extra nozzles, always a bonus. Now included with the toolkit is our GPS tracker. Whoa, let me get the wire here. So the GPS tracker, it's just a little USB GPS. This allows you to connect this GPS to your computer ground station, and it allows you to mark flags and obstacles using this GPS. This is really handy if you're in an area with bad satellite coverage for your maps, or you want to be extra certain of your position of where you set your points. And this is included with each Helio model. And finally, this is probably my favorite tool that we include. With every Helio model, we have a maintenance checklist that goes over basically the torque rating and specs for each fastener on the aircraft, which I absolutely love. You know, I love getting technical with that kind of stuff. I want to make sure each fastener in my aircraft is torqued properly. So, with the Helio models, there's oh goodness, let me not drop it. There is a beautiful little torque wrench that allows you to torque your fasteners properly. Okay. And there's a few little odds and ends in here as well. We include additional rubber bands to hold your propellers in place when you transport the aircraft. There's also a digital angle gauge to be able to measure the angle of your motors in case you ever need to replace motors or motor arms. Allows you to easily service that. What else do we have in here? This little magic box. Oh, I don't have them in the box right now, but we do have chargers for all of our equipment. So, for example, our ground station controller, we have a USB charger in there as well. Again, fairly straightforward. You know, these are just kind of your very basic tools that are required for operating these aircraft. And it comes in a nice tool bag. So you can add on to this, of course, as well, but this is really the basics to the toolkit. It's pretty straightforward.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Delbert is with us today.
Oh, great. Hey, Delbert, how are you?
And he just made a quick comment that he's using a 10,000 watt generator to run 3 6S chargers.
Awesome. Yeah, so a 10,000 watt generator, that's a pretty serious generator. With 10,000 watts, let's see, I think you'd be able to run. Now, we are running 12 cell chargers. These are a little bit different than I think what Delbert's running, but we should be able to run, let's see, I'll do the math real quick. If we're at 1,500 watts each, we should be able to run about at least, oops, hold on, pulling up my calculator here.
18?
Let's see. We'd probably be able to run 5 or 6 generators at full power. So that would be a really good setup.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
6, and that would be 12 batteries.
Yeah. So that would really keep you
At
flying
one time.
basically nonstop. So that would
Wow.
be a good setup. Yeah. Like I said, these chargers are about 1,500 watts a piece. So you can kind of determine that from there. Like I said, I like to give myself margin. So yeah, you'd be able to run about 6 chargers. That's
Nice.
that's a serious setup, Delbert. Perfect.
So, there's. Oh wait, here we go. I'm charging.
Got another question?
Oh, he said he's charging 6 S's.
Oh,
at one
okay.
time.
At one time. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Right,
Mm-hmm.
because his chargers also run 2 batteries at a time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That makes sense.
Thanks, Delbert. That's great feedback from you. That's awesome. Cool. So
How much fuel does that use to run?
Yeah, that's a good question. 10,000 watt generator probably has a pretty serious motor on it, I bet.
Yeah, that would be an interesting question. I'll have to follow up with him.
Right.
So, what other things do you bring out other than I made some kind of notes for us that we can put up later in our frequently asked questions.
Absolutely. So a couple other things that are always important to bring is, of course, your ground station computer, right? I mean, this is your main device that you use to operate the aircraft. So a couple things about my ground station computer. Depending on how you're operating, you may or may not require something that's ruggedized or weather resistant. One thing that I've noticed from my experience is you definitely want a computer with a nice, bright screen. I think that's probably the most important thing. Unfortunately, when using bright screens, it tends to drain your battery fairly quickly too. So you want to make sure you have a device with a good battery as well. Since you have a generator typically on site, or at least a power source, you can at least keep your computer charging as you use it, which is what I recommend. Thankfully, a lot of computers nowadays, I know mine is too, can charge on USB-C, so it gives you a lot of options for portable power banks or inverters off of a vehicle to keep them charged. I try not to run them on battery if I can avoid it, but I've also run on battery for most of the day before. On my laptop, there's nothing special about it. It's just a regular HP laptop. I can run it about 6 hours in the field at full brightness, and it does just fine. I know a lot of, and this is not a new computer, a lot of more modern computers have better batteries too, will run even longer. So it's nice that the computers nowadays have a lot more battery life than they used to, that's for sure. So it's less of an issue than it used to be with the battery life. But you do want to make sure that it's fully charged before you start with your operations, of course.
Absolutely. We get those questions often about the computer, what's required, what are the requirements, and I think I heard somebody tell me anything i3 or above is going to be just fine.
Yeah, the modern,
that's almost everything now.
Pretty much everything, yeah. And the ground station system, the Agrasol that's used on the Helio systems, they don't require that powerful of a computer. So that is something to keep in mind. Actually, in some cases, if it's a really, really, really fast laptop, they tend not to have as good of a battery life. So that's something to keep in mind. That is a trade-off. The faster the PC, typically, it is going to slow or drain your battery faster too because of the processing power. But pretty much all of the Core i3, 5, and 7 processors nowadays on laptops, they've gotten so efficient that you get really, really great battery life. And there's a lot of options for ruggedized systems too. So I know Panasonic has a lot of ruggedized Toughbooks. There's a lot of other manufacturers out there too. It really boils down to personal preference. How big of a screen do you want? How rugged do you need it? It boils down to preference. But in my case, I guess I don't need as rugged of a PC, so I use a standard laptop, and it works just fine for me. We run it all day long, and it does great. So
excellent.
Again, that's one thing that I think just a couple years ago, the battery life on these laptops were not nearly as good as they are today. So it would have been a stretch to run 2 hours just a couple years ago on a laptop in the field. But now the battery has gotten so much better, and the processors have gotten a lot more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now,
excellent.
Yeah, let's talk about how we actually transport our system to the field.
Questions.
So that's something that we get asked all the time, right? Well, how do I transport all this equipment? So we've talked about our tools, we've talked about our power system, we've talked about our chargers, our PCs. Well, we're starting to get to a lot of stuff that we need to transport. And we haven't even talked about the elephant in the room here, which is the actual product that we're spraying. So this is becoming a lot of equipment that we need, and of course, typically in most spraying applications, we're going to have a large tank that we need to carry with us to fill up the drone. And that's something that we might even do a whole lunch and learn just on that, because there's a lot of options out there for that. Most of our customers are carrying a holding tank. The size is going to depend on their application, and they just simply have a little transfer pump to fill up the tanks on the drone. So it's fairly straightforward. But of course, you need a way to transport all this equipment, and you're not just going to fit it in the back of a Honda, right? You need either a truck, a van, or a trailer to transport this equipment. And we've seen all three options work really well for our customers. I think what we might do is we might spend one of our future lunch and learns showing just the vehicles that we've seen our customers and other people do. That's a whole topic on its own, but I do want to cover it quickly here. Like Simon, I said, yeah, go ahead.
Just one quick question, because we do have something in the chat.
Sure, go ahead.
Before we get too far away from the computer.
Yeah.
It was OS or Windows, and
great question.
I was thinking about bringing it up, but if you could answer that real quick, that'd be great. Sorry.
So the Helios system, which is our current agricultural drone sprayer lineup, does require Windows systems currently. That's a great question, though. Very important to know, of course. The thing I like about that is it does give you a lot more options for hardware. Like I said, regular from relatively inexpensive standard laptops to ruggedized systems and more. So it opens up the doors a little bit more for systems that you can actually use. And like I was saying, and guys, please, thank you for all the questions. Please keep posting them in the yes. comments here. It really helps us out with these, and that's why we do these live. We love to interact with you guys. Mm-hmm. But in regards to transporting the aircraft, like I said, we've seen it all. We've seen trucks, trailers, and vans. And from what I've seen in my experience, I think vans are the way to go. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. It allows you to stand up in most cases. In a lot of these taller, newer vans, you can stand up inside. You have everything accessible right within the van. There's a lot of options and third-party accessories available for racks, so you can actually put shelves in the vans to store all your batteries, because these batteries are pretty heavy. I mean, they weigh, some cases up to 10 pounds a piece. So if you're bringing 20, 30 batteries with you, you need a fairly sturdy system to transport them. Same with the chargers. Like I said, you saw me holding it. It weighs about 20 pounds. So you need a sturdy system to hold all this equipment. And I've seen with vans, there's a lot of great third-party options for shelving. We've also seen great trailer setups as well. If you already have a truck, of course, a trailer, I think, is the way to go. But if you're starting from scratch, I think vans are the ticket. And we've seen some really, really cool vans set up. Like I said, I think we'll do a episode just on vehicles to support drone operations in the future too. I don't want to get too deep into that.
That's a good topic. I like that.
Yeah, I know. I just thought of that.
I'm writing that one down.
Yeah, let's go ahead and write that one down for next time. We've seen a lot of trucks used as well, but the thing is, when you start to get into the size of drones like the Ag 122, that's basically taking up the entire bed of a truck. So you really need to have a trailer to support that. Just the truck bed starts to get pretty tight when you have to transport all this equipment. But it can get you started. So that's always something to keep in mind. And my gosh, John, we're already up at our 30 minutes. I can't believe how quick time went this time.
I know.
It's unbelievable. I definitely got some ideas for the next Lunch and Learns. And I think we'll probably go ahead and close this one out here. Thank you guys for all the questions and everything. Thank you again for joining us. Again, we'll be here every Tuesday at noon Eastern time, answering your questions live. If you have any other questions, please post them in the comments below or contact us at our website. You can see our site right there, hsc-uav.com. We'll be happy to help you out for any questions you might have. For any systems, any drones, any questions that you have, we can help you. Thanks, John, again for helping me out here. Thank you for joining us. And thank you guys for joining us as well. We'll go ahead and see you guys next time. Thank you again, guys.